There is a specific kind of person who ends things without a speech. No final argument, no dramatic exit, no long message explaining everything they felt and everything that went wrong. They simply become less available, then unavailable, and then gone. If you have ever been this person, you have probably also felt the guilt that comes with it. The voice that says you owed someone more, that leaving quietly was cowardly, that a real person would have stayed and worked it out. Friedrich Nietzsche would disagree with that voice entirely. He believed that the capacity to outgrow people, situations, and versions of yourself without needing permission or validation was not a character flaw. It was one of the rarest forms of strength a human being can develop. In this video, you will discover why mature people disappear without warning, and why that silence is not coldness. It is clarity. Point 4 is the one most people never give themselves permission to hear. 1. Mature people don't leave dramatically because drama is not the point. There is a version of leaving that requires an audience, a confrontation, a final conversation where everything is laid out and someone is held accountable. And sometimes that conversation is necessary. But most of the time, the person seeking that confrontation is not looking for closure. They are looking for one more chance to change your mind. Nietzsche wrote that the higher a person develops, the less they require external validation for their internal decisions. The mature person has already had every version of that conversation in their own mind. They know what they saw, they know what they felt, and they know that saying it out loud will not change what happened, so they leave without the performance. 2. Explaining your exit gives people the opportunity to rewrite what you experienced. This is the pattern most kind people fall into. They decide to leave. Then they explain why. And the moment they explain, the other person responds. They reframe. They minimize. They apologize just enough to create doubt. They introduce a version of events that makes the leaving person feel unreasonable for leaving, and suddenly a decision that was clear becomes complicated again. Nietzsche understood that words are not neutral. In the wrong hands, your honest explanation becomes raw material for manipulation. The mature person protects their decision by not submitting it for debate. Your reasons belong to you. You're not obligated to defend them. 3. Not every relationship deserves a formal ending. Some connections dissolve not because of a single event, but because of 1,000 small ones. A pattern of being minimized. A habit of being the one who always reaches out first. A slow realization that you feel worse after every interaction than you did before it. There is no single moment to point to. There is only the accumulation of moments that eventually makes the answer obvious. Nietzsche believed that a person of genuine self-respect does not wait for a catastrophic event to justify their departure. The pattern is enough. The consistent feeling is enough. You do not need a crime to leave. You need only an honest assessment of what this relationship costs you. 4. The people who demand an explanation for your silence are often the reason for it. Notice who gets loudest when you go quiet. It is rarely the people who treated you well. It is almost always the people who benefited most from your presence and gave back the least. They frame your disappearance as cruelty. They call it immature, cowardly, unfair. But what they are actually expressing is the loss of access. Access to your time, your energy, your emotional availability. Nietzsche identified this clearly. The person who claims to be wronged by your boundary is frequently the person whose behavior made the boundary necessary. Their outrage is not evidence that you were wrong. It is evidence that your exit was the correct one. 5. Outgrowing someone is not a betrayal. It is the natural consequence of growth. When you change, genuinely change, some relationships simply cannot follow. Not because anyone failed, not because anyone is a bad person, but because growth is directional, and not everyone is moving in the same direction at the same pace. Nietzsche spoke of self-overcoming as the central task of a human life, and self-overcoming always costs you something. Sometimes it costs you comfort. Sometimes it costs you familiarity, and sometimes it costs you people who were real and good, but who belong to a version of you that no longer exists. Letting those connections fade is not disloyalty. It is honesty. 6. The quiet exit is often the most respectful thing you can offer. Not every ending needs to be processed out loud. Some people are better honored by a clean departure than by a conversation that reopens wounds and reassigns blame. Mature people understand that the goal is not to be understood by everyone. The goal is to move forward with integrity. And sometimes integrity looks like silence. You do not owe anyone a performance of your pain. You do not owe anyone a detailed explanation of your growth. And you do not owe anyone continued access to your life simply because they were once part of it. Some exits are not abandonment. They are the final act of self-respect. Subscribe to the channel, because understanding when to walk away and how is one of the most important skills you will ever develop.